So it's now my great privilege and pleasure to introduce our commencement speaker this year, Dr. Margaret Hamburg, who's the 21st Commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration. In welcoming Dr. Hamburg to Stanford, it's really like welcoming her home. In point of fact, she lived on this very campus. It turns out just a couple of doors away from where I live when she was growing up. Her parents were incredibly distinguished academicians and founded the Department of Psychiatry here, and her father, the program in human biology. But she has had her own remarkably distinguished career. It started with a decision which she made when she left Stanford at high school, graduation from high school, to go to the Stanford of the East. You all know what that is. Get over it. But there she completed her undergraduate degree and then went on to Harvard Medical School. And from there went to do her residency in internal medicine at New York Hospital, the Weill Cornell School of Medicine, at a time that was quite relevant to all residents. It's when the, quote, Libby Zion case occurred. And for those who don't know what that is, and I won't go into all the details, it was a tragic story that ultimately led to a transition and change in the amount of time that residents or interns could work in the hospital. From when I was a resident and we worked 132 hours a week, that's why they called us residents, it slipped down to now the traditional 80-hour work week. That's all you have to worry about. But there at New York Hospital, she began to witness some of the dramatic changes that were beginning to shape the world that has become part of our repertoire. And after doing some research in neuroscience, she joined the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Disease right at the juncture point when AIDS was on the horizon, and she worked as an assistant director for the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. And it was really in that capacity that I had the privilege of first getting to meet and know Peggy Hamburg, Margaret Hamburg, whose career has continued to just shine in so many different ways. She went on to become the Commissioner of Health in New York City, where she followed some of the examples of her own parents in public service and led the way to the needle exchange program, which had such a courageous act in helping to stem the tide of AIDS, and then really playing a major role in dealing with multiply resistant tuberculosis at a time when this nation was really at risk for a major outbreak. Her career then, as has been true in her own legacy, was influenced by a couple of presidents who tapped her on the shoulder. First, President Clinton, who asked her to be the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation, and following which she served as the founding vice president of a foundation on nuclear care and challenges, and then was tapped by, of course, President Obama to become the 21st director, a commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration. Her activities there have really been quite extraordinary at a very, very complicated time. She's continued to focus on important issues like tobacco and smoking, like food and safety, like regulatory science. She's given a public voice to issues that are really extraordinarily critical today and to our future as a nation, indeed our future as a global environment. So I'm thrilled and honored to bring forth our commencement speaker for this year, Commissioner Margaret Hamburg.
Dean Pizzo, trustees, distinguished faculty, parents, families, and friends, thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this wonderful celebration. I join all of you in congratulating the outstanding 2012 graduates of the Stanford University School of Medicine. Whether you're receiving an MD, a PhD, a master's degree, or a combined degree, You are graduating from an extraordinary institution, and you are poised to do extraordinary things. As a daughter of Stanford, as you've heard, I am perhaps just a little bit biased, but there are few medical schools anywhere that offer the education and training that you have received. The dedication of Stanford's faculty, the caliber of the teaching, the importance of the research, the quality of patient care, and the effectiveness of its leadership have all earned Stanford Medical School enormous respect and admiration, and secured its position as one of the leading medical institutions throughout the world. And for the class of 2012, you too deserve respect and admiration. You have clearly succeeded, even excelled, in this world-class setting, this exceptionally dynamic and demanding academic environment. As I look out from this podium, I know that for decades to come, you will, in fact, save lives, solve medical mysteries, invent technological wonders, and more, building on what you've learned here and what you've done here. There's an old saying that it's better to be lucky than good. True or not, there was certainly a lot of serendipity in life. But Louis Pasteur had a different take. He said, "Chance favors the prepared mind." And I was reminded of this every day while serving as New York City's health commissioner, because the quote was actually inscribed in big, large letters in the wall of our lobby. But I don't think you need a reminder. You're already far better prepared than most. You now belong to a very elite group that has the tools and the training to improve the lives of so many, whether it's through research, medical practice, or public service. What you do will matter. So on behalf of those whose lives you've already touched with your medical and research skills, and that you will touch in the years ahead, I say thank you for working so hard and preparing so well. And I also think it's time that you also say thank you, first and foremost to your families. They've stood by you, they've supported you, and today they share your joy, excitement, and pride. Thank your professors, the faculty and staff who put so much time and effort into teaching you, guiding you, inspiring you, and sometimes prodding you. And thank each other too, because you never would have reached this auspicious day without the friendship, support, and the collaboration of your colleagues. For many years, Stanford was my home. I lived right here on campus, as Dean Pizzo said, and both my parents were on the med school faculty. Growing up, I was immersed in medicine and science. My parents were physicians and researchers, and so were the parents of most of my friends. It was a life that I saw every day, and it looked fun, exciting, and rewarding. And I went off to college thinking that I too wanted to be a doctor. But when I got there, I discovered that pre-med courses weren't, in fact, so fun, and that there were a lot of other things that were interesting in life to do. I got involved with the school newspaper, and for a while I was considering a career in journalism. My father now refers to this as the period when I was drifting. But eventually, the prodigal daughter saw the light and came around. And when I was admitted to medical school, albeit a second-rate medical school, my great Aunt Winnie, who was sort of like a grandmother to me, exclaimed, "Oh, sweetie, I'm so happy because now you can finally marry a doctor." Sadly for her, I did not. But back then, I really had absolutely no intention of a career in government or public service. I wanted to be an academic physician doing research, teaching, and clinical practice. But that old Yiddish saying is true: people plan and God laughs. For me, my path took a dramatic turn as I watched the HIV/AIDS epidemic emerge. As a first-year medical student, we were actually taught that the advent of antibiotics and vaccines had really made it possible that medicine was now on the verge of ending the era of infectious diseases. But how wrong that was. Soon, cases of a mysterious immune deficiency syndrome began to present. No one knew what caused it. No one knew how to care for it. And in fact, no one even knew what to call it. But it was AIDS. By the time I was an intern in New York City, I was taking care of many AIDS patients, and actually one of our fellow interns actually succumbed to this devastating disease. But we had no effective treatment and no medicine on the horizon. We could offer neither a cure nor hope. For a newly minted, idealistic doctor like me, that was humbling. Those early days of AIDS brought many lessons. They opened my eyes to the importance of research and of global health. They opened my eyes to the need for strategic thinking and an integrated health system that harnesses the full continuum of medicine, science, and public health. And they opened my eyes to the fact that some of the greatest challenges in medicine exist at the interface of a broader set of social, ethical, political, and legal concerns. The AIDS crisis propelled me into the world of public health and health policy. And yes, this terrible, devastating disease certainly opened my eyes, but it also opened a door. The unexpected opportunity to become health commissioner for New York City. My first reaction was, this is crazy. I'm not qualified, and frankly, I was terrified. My Aunt Winnie wasn't altogether happy either. She said, "You'll be throwing away the chance after so many years of training to be a real doctor." My father tried to calm her down by explaining that I would still be a real doctor, but instead of having one patient at a time, now I'd have 8 million. And now as FDA commissioner, I guess I have over 300 million. But I'm telling you this because when I was sitting where you are today, I had no idea that I would end up one day in any of these jobs. Your future will definitely hold many opportunities. You've guaranteed that with the degree you're getting and all your hard work. But what path you choose will be neither obvious nor easy, nor without risk. So be open to and enthusiastically seize new opportunities wherever and however you find them. Let chance favor your prepared minds, and make sure that you translate your ideas and opportunities into real-world action, even when the path is hard. When I began as New York City Health Commissioner, the city was facing a fiscal crisis and budgets were being slashed. New York was not only an epicenter for HIV/AIDS, but we were struggling to deal with the resurgence of tuberculosis in epidemic proportions, and now in a more dangerous and harder to treat drug-resistant form. Communities in the city had health statistics that looked more like those of developing countries, and we faced a new threat, domestic terrorism, that required us to think in new ways about what it means to protect health. I felt unprepared for so many problems, big and small, whether it was how to ensure that thousands of TB patients scattered around the city, many of whom were homeless, drug addicted, or had multiple concurrent medical and social maladies, took their medications reliably for months on end so that they would be adequately treated and to prevent the further development of drug-resistant strains. Or how, after a young boy had been bitten by a possibly rabid raccoon, to transport that raccoon's brain up to the only rabies testing lab in Albany, New York, when the only people authorized to transport such biological materials were out on strike. Nothing in my medical school curriculum prepared me with the answers, but we found them. For TB, we sent health workers into patients' homes and under bridges or wherever we could find them to make sure that they took their medicine until cured. And for the raccoon brain, an igloo cooler, a car service, and a willingness to skirt a few rules did the job and possibly saved a young boy's life. It was hard, but my experience as health commissioner was perhaps the best preparation for my job now at the FDA. I entered into this role in the midst of similar challenging circumstances: economic uncertainty, budget constraints, mistrust in regulation, and concern about the future of health care overall. But to be honest, when I agreed to lead this enormous agency, I did not fully appreciate the scope of the job. As you may or may not know, the FDA regulates drugs, medical devices, vaccines and biologics, the safety of our nation's food supply, blood supply, cosmetics, dietary supplements, and most recently, tobacco. Commodities that actually account for over 20 cents of every dollar that consumers spend on products, and things that people really care about, often in life-saving ways. As an agency, we have to make hard decisions every day, and almost every decision that we make leaves some people very unhappy. But as I've learned, especially in the face of complex scientific and socio-political challenges, the only way for the FDA to stay on course is to be open, responsive, and accountable, to have a clear and consistent framework for decision-making, weigh risks and benefits carefully, and above all, ground our decisions in the best available science. And no matter what you do, I think that this is good advice for all. As future doctors, scientists, and public health officials, much will be expected of you. I urge you to recognize that with your training and your new titles comes a broader responsibility. The poet William Butler Yeats wrote, "Though the leaves are many, the root is one." I hope each of you will always remember that while the leaves of medicine and science are many, the root is one, and that is the imperative to advance human health for all. Whether you're treating individual patients as a practicing physician, delving into the mysteries of life as a bench scientist, learning which therapies work best for which disease as a clinical researcher, or addressing the broader issues of public health and health policy as a government official, you have the opportunity and the responsibility to be part of a whole that's greater than yourselves. Be willing to work across disciplines, across sectors, across borders. Be willing to work with all of those who have a stake in what you're doing or a perspective to offer. I know that this philosophy of productive collaboration is embedded in Stanford's education, research, and patient care mission. I hope that you have embraced it and that you will live it in earnest. And why? Because the complexity and the urgency of the problems before us demands it. AIDS is now a chronic manageable disease, not a life sentence, because the entire system worked together, from patients and their loved ones who advocated, often loudly, for their needs, to AIDS workers who walked the streets giving out accurate information and urging people to be tested, to doctors and clinics and hospitals who provided care and studied the disease, to dedicated and brilliant researchers in government, academic, and private labs who made crucial discoveries about the nature of the disease and how to treat it. The practice of medicine and biomedical research has never been more promising, more exciting, or more fulfilling. From sequencing the human genome, to eradicating smallpox, to curing some deadly cancers, to finding treatments for HIV infection, much of what is possible today was actually only a hope when I started medical school. Huge progress has been made, but there is so much more to be done. So never stop learning, never stop asking questions, and never forget that medicine is an art as well as a science, practiced by doctors and researchers who bring to the bedside and to the bench not only technology and training, but also their humanity, caring, and concern. Patients do not put their trust in machines or devices. They put their trust in you. You've already spent years studying, training, doing research, and seeing patients, and likely you'll have many, many more years of education before you. But please remember that the more skilled you become, the more specialized you become, and the more dependent on technology you become, the easier it becomes to lose your humanity, forget your compassion, and ignore your instincts. And I have one last piece of advice. Never, ever lose your moral compass. AIDS was a crucible event that changed my career path and my life's mission. Watching AIDS destroy so many led me to public service, where I've had the opportunity to treat not just individual patients, but whole neighborhoods, communities, and populations. You came of age under the shadow of a different set of crucible events: 9/11, a bioterrorist attack, 2 wars, a flu pandemic, the worst recession since the 1930s, and the specter of everything from unsustainable growth in healthcare costs, a widening gap between rich and poor, newly emerging biological threats, both naturally occurring and deliberately caused, an aging population and all the problems that come with that, growing conflict around the world, and global warming, to name just a few. I hope you will use these challenging times to strengthen your moral compass by directing your energies and talents to doing good, not just doing well. That you will combine the knowledge and skills you've gained here at Stanford with the courage of your convictions, to be great doctors and scientists, to speak for those in need or underserved, to advance science in the service of humanity, and to make sure that you hand the next generation of doctors and scientists an even more innovative, responsive, curative, and preventive health system than the one that is being handed to you. But all of that is about tomorrow. Today is about you, your joy, your pride, your achievements, and your well-deserved celebration. I join others in saying, go and party. So I offer you all of my best wishes for your success and happiness. Congratulations, class of 2012.
The preceding program is copyrighted by the Board of Trustees of the Leland Stanford Junior University. Please visit us at med.stanford.edu.